Let's go Falcons. The offseason is heating up, and there's a new free agent target who could be a perfect, cost-effective fit for Atlanta's defense. Let's dive in. So hit that like button and subscribe now so you don't miss any updates on the Falcons' latest moves. The Falcons need defensive help, and there's an affordable option on the market. We all know the Falcons have some big decisions to make this offseason, especially with the Kirk Cousins situation. But while the quarterback drama takes center stage, let's not forget about another big issue, fixing this defense. Atlanta finished 19th in yards allowed per play and 23rd in scoring defense last season. The front seven took a lot of the blame, but the secondary wasn't much better, giving up 6.3 net yards per pass attempt. That's why adding a solid, experienced cornerback should be at the top of the Falcons' priority list. And guess what? A major bargain just hit the market. Kendall Fuller, a smart, low-cost target for Atlanta. The Miami Dolphins surprisingly released veteran corner Kendall Fuller, making him a prime candidate for Atlanta to pursue. Fuller, 30, has been in the league since 2016, playing for Washington, Kansas City, and Miami. Throughout his career, he's been a steady and reliable defensive back, racking up 10 interceptions in 4 years with Washington before joining the Dolphins. Now, let's be real, he's not the all-pro blocking corner he once was. Last season, he didn't record an interception, but he still held quarterbacks to just 316 yards and 1 touchdown when targeted, allowing just a 62.8% completion rate. With A.J. Terrell locked in as CB1, the Falcons still need depth. D. Alford could return, but adding Fuller would bring experience and stability to the secondary, and at a price that won't break the bank. Can the Falcons afford him? This is where things get really interesting. Fuller made just $2.5 million with the Dolphins last season. That's exactly the kind of team-friendly contract Atlanta needs right now. The Falcons are currently $11.1 million over the salary cap. Plus, if they cut Kirk Cousins as expected, they'll be hit with $65 million in dead cap space and a $25 million penalty. Not ideal. But that's exactly why signing a veteran like Fuller, who won't require a huge deal, makes perfect sense. He's a low-risk, high-reward move that instantly helps the defense without hurting the team financially. What do you think, Falcons fans? So, what do you think? Should the Falcons target Kendall Fuller and add some much-needed depth at cornerback? Or should they look elsewhere for defensive help? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's talk about a scenario that might send chills down your spine. Where would the Falcons be right now if they hadn't drafted Michael Penix Jr.? Let's be real, Penix is the only thing keeping this fan base from going into a frenzy. His raw talent and electric performances in the final games of the season gave us something we haven't had in years, hope. But what if the Falcons hadn't made that pick? Let's break it down. What if the Falcons hadn't drafted Michael Penix Jr.? It's crazy to think about, but if Atlanta had gone in a different direction on draft night, the franchise would be in a completely different and much worse situation right now. Let's start with Kirk Cousins. If the Falcons hadn't taken Penix, Cousins would have played all 17 games, and we likely would have seen the same offensive struggles that have plagued the team for most of the year. Even with Cousins, it's hard to believe the outcome would have been much different. Atlanta still would have missed the playoffs for the 7th consecutive season. But here's where things really get complicated. The offseason would be a nightmare. Without a young quarterback waiting in the wings, the Falcons would have no choice but to keep Cousins as their starter in 2025. And while he would have time to recover from an injury, let's be honest, how excited would you be for another season of Cousins as QB? The Falcons would be stuck in a cycle of mediocrity. The real problem wouldn't just be 2025, it would be the long-term outlook for this franchise. Think about what Terry Fontenot said after the draft. This team wasn't bad enough to land a top quarterback in the future. Without Penix, the Falcons would be stuck in the worst spot in the NFL, good enough to miss out on elite QB prospects, but not good enough to compete for a Super Bowl. No franchise quarterback. No playoff appearance. No salary cap space. Just endless frustration for the fan base. Instead, the Falcons took a chance, and now there's real hope that Penix could be a star in the NFL. And as we all know, any team with a superstar quarterback has a chance to make a deep playoff run. What do you think, Falcons fans? How different would this offseason have been if the Falcons hadn't drafted Michael Penix Jr.? Do you still have hope for the future, or do you think the team is completely lost? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now let's look at two key players who could make a big impact in 2025, Bralon Trice and DeMarco Hellams. These two were poised to make a difference last season before injuries in the first preseason game took them out for the year. Now, as they prepare to return, the big question is, how will they fit into this defense? Let's break it down. Bralon Trice, the X-Factor off the edge? Let's start with Bralon Trice, the 2024 third-round pick. If there's one word to describe him, it's relentless. In training camp, he showed flashes of being a dominant pass rusher, the same guy who was Washington's defensive MVP in 2022 and 2023. GM Terry Fontenot has been loud about him from the start, praising his power, motor, and ability to play both the run and pass. And let's be honest, Atlanta needs someone like that. While the defensive front finished last season strong, ranking 11th in yards allowed per game and second in sacks per pass attempt from weeks 13 to 18, the pass rush is still a question mark. Arnold Ebiketie caught fire late in the season with 5 sacks in the last 6 games, but the Falcons still lack a true, consistent presence on the other side. If Trice can be that guy, the Falcons' pass rush could finally take the leap we've been waiting for. Pairing him with Ebiketie and letting inside guys like Rook Orhororo and Brandon Dorlus wreak havoc inside could make this front line one of the best we've seen in years. DeMarco Hellams, the answer at safety? Now let's talk about DeMarco Hellams. This guy was on track to take on a big role in 2024, working with the first-team defense in camp and starting 4 of the last 6 games in his rookie year. But with Justin Simmons set to hit free agency, the Falcons need to figure out who will line up alongside Jesse Bates III. Could Hellams be that guy? Coaches love his football IQ, and even through the injury, he remained deeply involved in film study and defensive meetings. According to assistant coach Jerry Gray, Hellams was still getting assignments, studying film, and staying mentally sharp even though he couldn't play. That kind of preparation could pay off big if the Falcons decide to trust him to start 17 games in 2025. The big question, are they ready? Here's the bottom line. Trice and Hellams could be key pieces of the Falcons' defense, but there are still unknowns. Can Trice step up and give Atlanta a legitimate pass-rushing duo with Ebiketie? Can Hellams fill the void at safety if Simmons leaves? If the Falcons believe in them, it could change how they approach free agency and the draft, allowing them to focus on other defensive needs. But if they still have doubts, we could see some new faces brought in. What do you think, Falcons fans? Are Trice and Hellams ready to step up and play big roles in 2025? Or do the Falcons need to add more pieces on defense? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And before you go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more news, and go Falcons!